Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Brad, for this opportunity to be able to discuss this. I'm excited to be here with you guys. Today, we're going to be deep diving into the distributor's guide into breaking operational silos. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and be presenting. Please let me know if you could see my screen. I just want to make sure that I'm presenting correctly. So again, my name is Aaron Pallares. I'm a solutions engineer and account manager here at DCKAP. So when I started down this path of digital silos and the silos in general, I started thinking about how some of the business models are set up, right? As a result, believe it or not, we have silos in our companies. We just name them by different, we give it a different nomenclature. So initially when I thought about a silo, I actually thought about this, I thought about the silos that you have on farmlands that, hold, repository of nutrients and everything. You see them in the, when you get out of the city into farmlands. The other silo that I actually thought about when I was thinking about this is this one. And if you can't see the image, it's actually a missile silo. And I, just out of curiosity, by a show of hands, who would like to be responsible for the for that silo, right? Who would want to be responsible for pushing the button that unleashes that? I can pretty much tell you that, while 99% might not want to have that responsibility, I can tell you when you go into a new project, there are times where you're trying to find that button where you just say, you know what, let's just start all over from the beginning. The frustration of doing some digital architect is definitely up there, right? But one thing that I want to encourage you guys is the fact that, all of you guys in your business have silos in your company. We just have to define what they really are. So what is the silos that we have today? So let's define it. A silo.
Sorry to interrupt. We cannot see your screen yet.
So
no worries.
Over here presenting and everything, and nobody said anything. There it goes. Okay. Now, can you guys see it?
You're good.
Perfect. So again, previous silos, we were talking about the farmlands. And then obviously we have the missile silo here specifically. But today's silos that we have taken on a new type of definition. So, a silo is now used as a metaphor for a separate entities that stockpile information and effectively seal it in. In a business organization, those silos are referred to business divisions or departments, which every business has, that operate independently and sometimes avoid sharing information, right? A digital silo is the digital architect that we have in our businesses. So that includes the ERPs, that includes the CMSs, that includes the CRMs, all these acronyms that we have grown accustomed to. So just to name a few of the department silos that we have in our businesses, we have the customer service department. I always call the customer service department the front line, of our businesses, because they're the ones that do the conversation with customers. They have a grace upon themselves that are so, it's so amazing to be able to see when you have somebody basically yelling at the other end of the line, asking where their product is and wanting to find out more information. And you just have this poised individual to just be able to discuss with them with such a natural calm, about what's going on with their situation. Another one is the warehouse department. These guys put in more miles in their shoes than I can even probably imagine in my lifetime. They're up and down using systems and using machinery to be able to get the products to their customers as quickly and as effectively as possible. Another one is the finance department, right? We love the finance department because they're the ones that hold the checkbooks to be able to say, we need this proposal to be accepted so that we can go ahead and create these new projects that come about. So as a result, we're always trying to talk with them and having a good relationship with them, especially with new projects. Another one is the IT department. So the IT department is whether, someone needs a brand new computer and needs to have that modified or cleaned up, or it's just also the systems itself, right? So the ERPs, the CMSs, and or, excuse me, and or any other of those acronyms that we have. And then if you're lucky to have a legal department, you can have a legal department. They're the ones that kind of cover your back, the ones that make sure that when you decide to have this tremendous idea and you got all these departments in line, you're able to go ahead and move forward, so that you can go ahead and successfully set the foundation for your business, and without any fear of retaliation of anything else outside. So in a picture perfect world, all of these business, all of these departments, all of these silos begin to fluidly talk to one another without reservation, right? Communication begins to happen frequently, and also information begins to happen. And again, I say picture perfect world because of the fact that we just had um our poll here, and it said that 69% have problems with change, and change is difficult, but in the digital era that we are living in now, change is inevitable. The only thing consistent, as they say, is change itself. I'm pulling back from previous history that in situations where we had to create new projects and we needed to create a dynamic within the building so that everybody could be able to participate and the hesitation towards that would be minimum. What I did and what I found more powerful is a little example of the little bighorn effect. So sometimes when you're projecting an idea, and you go into these rooms with your team leads and department supervisors, you're projecting this idea and not everybody's on board. And for the most part, you kind of find that resistance internally, and you're been tasked either by executive leadership or yourself to be able to go ahead and create these new business practices through new digital architect. And as a result, again, not everybody's on board or not everybody's clear about it. So what I've seen as a good helpful resource is to be able to gather the team that is willing to do that and to create the momentum with that. And as a result, it creates an environment where, a tad bit separation happens where, they feel like they're not being invited to the party. So as a result, people decide, you know what, I don't want to be part of this. I want to be part of the party. And they get into the momentum. I've seen this happen time after time that nobody wants to be left behind, right? So as a result, we end up going towards that. And there's been success in that. Once everybody has been in an opportunity where everybody is involved, then we can begin to dialogue as far as what that process begins to look at as time goes on. Now, we are also sometimes in our businesses constrained by the limited talent that we have. So one time in a situation where I was in charge of a group of 12 individuals that included not only actors but also videographers and also these other things in previous history, one thing that I noticed is that one thing that we could do is do what Moneyball did. So if you're very familiar, and as Cindy mentioned, I do like to watch a lot of movies. One of the movies that I'm inspired by is Brad Pitt's Moneyball. It's based off of Billy Beane from the Oakland A's, that basically is set forth like he needs to come up with a solution of always going to the World Series on, of not so good budget. So he tries something out of the box, right? I mean, something out of the ordinary, something that, other people are not going and automatically thinking that it is going to be successful. He just tries something different. And as a result, it kind of set the pattern for, ways for other things to happen, not only in his organization, but other organizations. So what I ended up doing, for example, in yesteryears, being responsible for new work that needs to be done with limited amount of talent, all I asked was for us to be able to take those projects and assembly line it. And what happened is that we had the buy-in of the team in order for that assembly line to happen. So, for example, if we needed to get an email marketing newsletter out, right? One person did the graphics, the other person did the content, the other person did the SEO, and in a format where everybody had a participation in it. Not only did it grow in the camaraderie within one another, but it also gave an appreciation for the work that had to be done with other people, right? With one specific person. As a result, that obviously generated the income that would provide us later on the opportunity for somebody to be brought on board. So that is incredible. Just a small snippet of what it is, of some tactics that I've seen personally used in departments. One of my things that comes to mind, or the quotes that comes to mind, was when John Maxwell said in a conference, he's like, the greatest thing about a business is the people. He said, but unfortunately, the worst thing about an organization is the people. And what he meant by that is the fact that depending on the wave that people have in their business model can depend on the success or their lack thereof in that organization. So one of the things that I always that comes to mind that has always been helpful as a resource is Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie has a quote that says, "People support a world they help create." And I've seen this time and time again, that people want to be involved. People want to be able to be supportive in the idea. People want to be able to hear this idea. And one of the books that I recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, you might be saying, why, Aaron, are you making reference to a book in a digital, webinar conference per se? And I said, the reason why I do that is because, Charlie Jones said it best. He says that you will be in the same person 5 years as you are today, except for the people that you meet and the books you read. Now, according to what I see, there's a couple of people already here that are not only presenting, but are also participants in hearing out. And again, we have this chat that we can share the books that have inspired us, the books that have challenged us, the books that have gotten us to the point of next level thinking. We have a plethora of individuals that have enormous amount of history, of experiences, of to-dos and what not to do's, right? I was just enjoying here sitting and listening to Brad and just listening to everything that he had to say and just kind of soaking it in and just understanding that there is a lot of history there. There's a lot of experience there. He knows what he's talking about, and you can rest in that trust to know that he is leading his team the best way he knows how, and he will continue to do that. And also, continue to help develop every client that comes along his way, So, I'd like to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes, even while I'm discussing, take a time to look at that chat and write down a book that has inspired you, whatever it may be. There is no judgment here in that aspect, or if in my case, if there's a movie that has inspired you that you want to go ahead and say, look, you know what, it's based on a true story movie, or this movie had some kind of impact in my life that has shown me something specifically, write it down. Those are the influence that are outside of, just the work and specifically that motivates us, that bring us to the next level thinking when it comes down to, what we're doing. On a day-to-day basis, we are constantly bombarded with the to-dos. We have to do things, and we have to do them in a series or however they come in. But there's moments in time where we're inspired by stuff. There's moments in time where we're inspired by places we have been, just the visual presentation of that, of an image or of a location inspires us to do more. One thing that I'll talk about later on here is the fact that, that human element, when COVID happened, it definitely, threw us for a loop in the aspect where, we had to change the way we thought and the way we did business. And while I can't say that another pandemic is going to come down to place, it does set the standard and the tone for us to be able to say in our departments, in our silos, we have to be able to be flexible, to be able to move when that comes like that, because the success of that business can be there. I've seen businesses that were up and available 90 years and they will never be able to be open again. That's 90 years of business solid within the community that we're unable to basically transform their business model to what needed to be done and are no longer part of, their of the community anymore. And it's sad, we lost a lot of great heroes. We lost a lot of colleagues and stuff like that. So breaking down those departments, breaking down, any kind of fears that we may have is just a tipping point of what we need to do in our business models and what I encourage everybody to do in the business models so that we can be successful, Now, we talked about department silos and we talked about how those exist, but we're obviously in a digital webinar. How does that work with where we are? Well, we have digital silos as well. So one of them is a content management system, right? The CMS. That could be anything from like Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, Sitecore, TeamSite, WordPress, et cetera, et cetera. Point of sales. That's another type of silos, especially like your business has a showroom and you want to be able to have your clients interact with that and everything. The other thing is, like, for example, in ERP, we talk about the ERP, we talk about P21, we talk about these other ones that are prominent and are working now and are being used, DDI, et cetera. CRM, customer relationship management, Salesforce. We talk about, HubSpot. We talk about all these marketing tools that are easily accessible to us, and we're able to use them specifically as our business grows. And then, we have like a warehouse management system. It'd be interesting, again, in that chat, and I would encourage you to use that chat. If there's another digital silo that I have not mentioned that you guys use in your business, by all means, share it with us. Share it with the team. Say, I don't use this ERP, I use this one, or I don't use this CRM, I use this one. And, it just gives us the opportunity to be able to see in a collaborative format where everybody is at, right? To be able to see specifically. We're not asking you to give us any of Area 51's code or anything like that, but it's cool to understand, to see what type of, services are you using and stuff like that. Now, we talked about earlier how, in departments are ran by, people. In digital silos, it's ran by logic, right? It is created by people. Don't get me wrong. Software developers went behind the scenes, and what they did is they tried to create an answer to a problem, and that has helped us out in the transition from yesteryears up to today. One of the opportunities that we're seeing is that now more than ever, as the technology continues to flourish really quick, the software developers are starting to have it where it's interacting and connecting with other systems, where in previously years they didn't have that, right? They were just developing the software in order for them to be able to create what's the word I'm looking for, to create a solution for the problem that they were experiencing. So, and you may be in a situation where, you're using some softwares that may not be cloud-based. They may or may not be cloud-based, or that software is transitioning over to cloud-based. I've also seen, for example, some of our clients that are specifically working, in new technology and kind of illustrating to their industry to say, hey, you guys need to get with the program. And it's a remarkable one that comes to mind specifically is the automotive industry, how one of our clients is specifically saying, hey, to the automotive industry, your way of doing things has been working well, but there's also other ways to be able to do that. And to see the automotive industry as a whole to be able to say, you know what, you might have a point there. That's tremendous. That's awesome. The ideas don't necessarily come from the original, founder, but it comes also from other individuals and the inspiration that they use, the collaboration that they use, right? So I highly encourage for that participation to be able to go on, because again, we're here, we have this moment, we have this day together, we have the ability to be able to cooperate and share that information and to learn. So one thing that DCKAP did, because they were noticing that, these instances were happening, is, they went back to the lab. I like to call it the lab, the computer lab, the R&D, and they thought of a solution to be able to help out with this scenario. And that solution happens to be the DCKAP integrator, right? So, I got to be very transparent with you. When I joined DCKAP and I found out that this service was available, I was kind of mad, because I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been in situations where, for example, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, I have my meetings, my morning meetings. I get back to my desk, I have my cup of coffee, I'm ready to rock and roll to see my emails and everything like that. No sooner do I sit down, customer service department comes in, and, Susie comes in and says, hey, John, who is our, the guy who's been, spending a lot of money, he just made an order, and, it's for like $10,000, but unfortunately he can't see it. And I'm like, well, how long ago did he do it? Well, he made it 5 minutes ago. I'm like, okay, so, all I know is that Susie came in, she's upset. Obviously it's my colleague, I want to help her out. And all she gave me was John, right? And now I have this idea that I have to look at the CMS, I'm sorry, the ERP to find out specifically what's going on, right? I have Susie, she's mad, the ERP, and a client. So I need to do that. So no sooner do I get on my desk and I'm starting to think about this thing, boom, in enters the guy from the warehouse. And he says, hey, it's been an hour and, I'm not receiving any orders. I don't know what's going on. I need you to figure it out. That's all he does. And he goes back because he's got to go back into the fire and make sure that he controls the flames. So these interactions are happening. And in yesteryears, what I'd have to do is I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking, I pull out my Rolodex and see how old I am. My Rolodex, and I start saying, okay, who is going to be the perfect help? Okay, I get on the phone. I say, hey, John, I need you to do this. I need you to open up a ticket. I need you to do this and everything like that. So after I finish that conversation, I no sooner in that conversation go into another conversation with the people with the systems in the back. So now I have two conversations with individuals who may be outside the organization and praying and hoping that my boss doesn't come in and say, hey, what's going on? Because he's heard either Susie and or the warehouse manager come into his office and say, hey, there things are going down, right? I know it doesn't happen in your organization. I'm just saying it happens in mine. So, but I'm saying in that situation, when I found out that the DCKAP at the integrator, I was like, man, I could have used this a long time ago, right? So what it is basically, again, the DCKAP integrator is a, excuse me, it's a cloud-based middleware solution that handles data between two or more systems as long as they're API associated. So again, that is your ERP, that's your PIM, your CRM. It is a platform agnostic, right? And it is hosted on AWS, and it is a SaaS-based product. When you get access, you obviously see your dashboard, and in your dashboard, you get a high graphical presentation of what's going on, the total numbers, records, process as far as APIs, the success rate, how many customers you had in the last 30 days, and then new orders. And then the cool thing about it is right here in this section on the right-hand side, you have projects. So in this demo, you have two specific projects. It gives us the opportunity to be able to have, kind of like a parent-child situation. There are instances within organizations that they say, you know what I want to do is I actually want to go ahead and buy out my competitor, or I want to buy out another company, which it happens, right? I've seen it happen. And in that, as they're doing that, this new company has different type of systems, and those systems have to be able to kind of integrate with the home corporate system, or at least have access to it in order so that that information can be passed over, right? And then business logic can be created and kind of things like that. So it gives you the opportunity to be able to do that, where you can have more than one project, and each of them, while using the same type of template, can have their own standalone, and they're not going to interact with one another, or better yet, hurt one another kind of deal. So, when you begin to have access, the first part we have to start off is with the credentials, right? We have to have access with systems. It wouldn't be great if we had the master key to everything and we could be able to talk to it, but unfortunately it's not like that. And it shouldn't be like that, right? We should be able to be under lock and chain. I advocate so much for the privacy that, we try to carry with our customers, because we want to keep that. Under no circumstances do you ever want to be on the other end where, something happens and then, that information gets out to the public, right? You want to keep things private that need to be private, and other things you want to be able to be public. In this scenario right here that we're looking at, you have a scenario where, you have either public API or a private API. Within that, if it's a public API, you can, integrate it all day, every day. But if it's a private API, then obviously you want to be able to add the credentials. You want to be able to make sure that all that information has been added specifically into the thing. And this is the only information, by the way, that is held inside the integrator. By no means any of the information, as it is like customer information, imagery, addresses or phones or pricing, that stays inside the integrator. It's just something that stays as a fluid inside his credentials, but the rest is just fluid. It's just data transfer, right? So once that happens, you can hit the test connection button, and then you can see the connection is successful. Now, one thing that I like really much is the view log. So the view log, if I were to click it, it actually shows specifically the time and date stamp. So for many people, when I used to make those phone calls, I didn't have access to that information. Those individuals would actually tell me specifically about what's going on. So as a result, I just knew in the back of my mind, for history purposes, that whatever the issue was, I have record of it, but I didn't see specifically any annotations. The integrator allows you to be able to see a time and date stamp about that stuff. And while it might not be one of those things where specifically it attracts the attention to one individual. When it comes down to developers, it's like developer language. The more information we have as developers, the better we can be able to process and analyze. So, and once that happens, then what we can do is we can actually migrate the over to the pipes and scheduling. So the pipe and scheduling, the best way I can describe it is if you can think of your pipes like your PVC pipes in your house, or even your conduit, if you're dealt with electricity. So what they do is basically they just allow those pipes to be created, and you'd be able to create these pipes for either customer sync or inventory sync or order processing sync, et cetera, et cetera. And you do that in two ways. You have the opportunity to be able to schedule them out. You can schedule them out either batch or dynamic. In a dynamic format, basically once the logic starts, it will continue to go until excuse me, until it finishes. So unless there's a stop created, or there is something that happens that stops the logic, it'll continue to do that. So dynamic is all day, every day. Now, we also give you the opportunity to do batch. In batch, for example, you might say, you know what, I'm going to schedule some stuff out. I want to have it where it's like, I want it to run at certain times of the day or certain hours of the day, certain times of the week or the month, et cetera, et cetera. We give you that power to be able to do that, right? Because every business model is different. Ideally, like you want to be able to have all the reports at the end of the day for what has happened the previous day and come in the very next morning to be able to see that stuff. You don't want to have it midday and all of a sudden find out specifically where you can't make a conclusive response to the business until you have specifically the full version of everything that's going on. You might want to do it just in case so you can see if you're on the right track, right? There's no problem with that. But for the most part, you want to see like, okay, what was going on kind of thing, and then be able to make those decisions, right? So you have that capability. And once you have the ability to be able to do, once you have defined that, then you can actually put it on this autopilot mode, which basically just kind of like sets it almost in a dynamic format. We give you the opportunity to be able to do the syncing out. So there's times where you have to push the logic through, right? You have to ensure that it's working, and you want to make sure that it's pushed through so that it can be able to work. And you do that through the sync now. It'll tell you the last day it was synced. And then the cool thing is right here, right underneath the titles, you see the view logs. Again, we give you the opportunity to be able to view logs. And we'll touch that here shortly in a bit. So digital mapping, Brad used the image of the octopus and stuff like that. And it's cool because when I talk about the digital mapping, I actually talk about the digital tensai from one source to its destination, right? In a picture perfect world, when these software developers go into development, they're already thinking about not only the solution, but they're also thinking about long-term and saying, okay, I need this system to talk to another system or have the capability to do that, right? And they set up that success right from the get-go. But there are instances where they're not. So what this allows you to do is you actually be able to actually map this. You have the capability to drag and drop on both sides, right? And you can do it from one source and help it successfully go to another source. Basically, again, aligning the pipes for one, ensuring that they're going to be able to talk. In the source, in this example, the source nomenclature has like first and last name and company, but the destination doesn't have that. It just has customer name and it has name, right? So, again, nomenclatures may change a little bit. You may call one thing item ID, while another system might be called SKU, et cetera, et cetera. And in the logic of the systems, you just want to make sure that they talk to one another and they're able to understand that when transitioning information. One of the cool things that, the integrator offers you is this button right here that's called the export button. So, in yesteryears, when you get two developers in a room and they basically talk to one another, have those conversations, about how they're going to integrate and everything like that, you don't really get to see specifically behind the scenes, where the export button gets the opportunity for you to be able to download it and then be able to go back to your digital architect and say, okay, we need to be able to add this new systems. Because I guarantee you what happens 9 times out of 10 is the fact that once you have your system all aligned and once you have everything rocking and rolling, it creates new problems like new customers, like new revenue, like new sales and stuff like that. It does what it needs to do, right? These problems are good problems. Nevertheless, they're problems, because then when you grow and you grow your business to one level, and then all of a sudden you have to grow to another level, right? So you say, you know what, we need to do new features. We need to do new services. And then the process begins again. You say, we need to go back and do the digital architect and stuff like that. And you're able to do that and view it, because you're able to export and see the logic behind that. Again, you have the capability also to be able to import it. So in the event that, like, you say, you know what, I don't want to do this drag and drop, I already have it in a format that is acceptable, you can all just import it, and it cuts down the time for that. So that's just one of the cool things that the integrator does. We talked about logs, right? So when you hit that sync button, it shows up a log, and it shows up specifically about what's going on, and everything is logged, and it's logged in two bases. One, it's logged in the activity history internally. So we'll get to manage the access in a minute, and show how those logs are being taken care of internally with your team. And the other one is the actual system. So you have like the total, if it's exceeded, if it failed, the duration, when it started, it finished. You can be able to view the console again, deep dive, see more of the communication that's happening behind the scene with the systems, to be able to deep dive should it need to happen. In the status, we kind of give you this like stop sign type of feel, where it's like, it's either a green light, it's orange, or yellow, and then it's red, right? If it's red, obviously you want to jump in there and find out what's going on. One of the things that I find it favorite is the duration, right? If speed is the key when having the ability to be able to be on the forefront for your customers, duration and having something that marks the time frame of the usage of an API, or how quickly your system is going, is very key and pivotal, because it can make the difference between somebody staying and being able to do business, or somebody just saying, I'm going to go somewhere else and just find it. Like, speed is key. It also helps out to be able to say, hey, you know what, maybe we need to upgrade our hosting, our hardware, whatever we need to do. It's not fast enough, or we need to tweak it. We need to get in there and see what's going on. And again, going back and trying to figure out specifically where the pain point is at, so that you can offer a better solution to your clients. Access, I just mentioned it. You have the capability to be able to have two types of access. One of us is the standard access, which, internally you can grant access to individuals, that are just going to be working there, or you have admin access for executive leadership. Should your organization grow and you want to be able to add access to new individuals, you can definitely do that, and then you can change their access if they get promoted to a position of executive leadership, that you can add more access for them. You can also add access and revoke them if they get, if the business decides to promote them to customers, and they're no longer part of your organization. You can definitely do that. One of the cool things that we can do in the integrator is that you have the capability to add the user groups. So in some cases, you want to be able to add a new service, and you're talking with the developers outside of, the sales representative of that service, and you're talking to developers, and you want them to see behind the scenes, to be able to see what's going on, so they can provide this new service that you're looking into, but at least know the logic in the business about your business model behind the scenes. You can definitely do that. You can add the group, you can, grant them a certain type of access so that they can only see what they need to see. And then at that point, you can go ahead and just begin to revoke it once they are done, and move forward with that. So it gives you a plethora of options to be able to for access. So you're not bound by certain type of things. You're not bound by information or anything of that nature, or the people that you have and stuff like that. So one thing that I wanted to mention, and I'll end with this final thought, is the fact that the market has changed in the last few years, and in some cases we've seen some winners and losers. We have seen some victory and defeat. We have seen some gain and losses. Let us never forget that people support the world that they help create. And outside of logic, which is void of emotion, there's a person behind each and every scenario, kind of deal, and their lives matter, and their voice matters within your organization. And we spent the majority of the time with these colleagues of ours. Let's make the best of it, and let's make the best of what we have today. We have tremendous leaders that are going to be coming, that one has already spoken. We have other ones that are coming behind me that are just going to be, tossing out an immense amount of, information, encouragement, dialogue, Q&A that they can obviously answer it. I mean, where else can you find, a situation where you have this type of individuals that are offering their opportunity to be able to give back to you guys, the attendees, the opportunity to ask them questions, to get in there and ask questions, and to do follow-ups, and to take your business to the next level, right? Let us create a beautiful human world first, and then, the rest will take care of itself. So ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here with you today. I leave myself open for any questions, comments, and or concerns. Feel free to follow up with me. And again, thank you to the ESTES group to be able to offer the opportunity for me to be able to, talk today and to share some insightful thoughts. At this point, what I want to do is I want to be able to hand it over to Miss Cindy, and so that she can go ahead and be able to set forth the tone about what's going to happen next. Again, I'm here to be able to answer some questions. It looks like there's some chats here. Okay. So again, let's take advantage of the fact that, we have some people here, about 27 participants. There's a plethora of book knowledge that we can share with one another. There's also a plethora of of experiences that we can offer. Again, I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you again, Cindy, for the poll. We want to be able to get to the point where it's the other way around, where it's like 60% of the businesses can say, yeah, we love change. We're able to make change. We're able to create change. Change is no problem for us. And, instead of of what it is today. So thank you again.
So yeah, I do have a couple of questions for you, Aaron. Shared data can break down silos, but shared maintenance can create new problems. How do you handle data management when sharing data?
That's a great question. So, my analytical mind begins to see where the pain point is at. And again, I start breaking it down from a perspective where, there's a human element because the individual is receiving the pain point, because that's normally what happens. Whether the person is responsible for that system or not, or they're just happen to be the individual that's using the system that happens to feel that pain point. So we would have to break down and by asking better questions. I cannot recommend a book more better than the QBQ by John Miller. So QBQ is the question behind the question. We have a tendency, and I have the tendency of being able to ask why. Why doesn't get you where you want to go? How gets you where you want to go? By asking how, it allows you to be able to leave some space in your mind to be able to say, okay, how can I have a change of attitude, a change of perspective, a change of where I can move towards doing something of action, whereas why stops me. So I go in with that attitude and I go in with that mindset to be able to see, okay, some situations happen where, there is a barrier of privacy, right? So we have to, go behind that. And again, I mentioned earlier, the things that need to be private should be private all day, every day. But when, talking with other individuals, we should be, especially within our company, we should be able to be fluid in that conversation, and be able to have that dialogue. More information should be able to be better. Just having enough, as I mentioned, the example for Susie, who came in, the customer service representative, and just told me that she's experienced a problem, and that John is also experiencing a problem and nothing more, doesn't really get me to a point of success, right? I need to have a little bit more information. So as people that are trying to, troubleshoot, the more information, the better, right? Obviously tone is key, because again, there's an emotional element to that, and there's expediency to that. But again, we have to go back to the fact that computer logic is void of emotion, and the human element is not. That does have an emotion and it's valid. So I start off with that. That's a great question, by the way.
All right, I have another one for you. Trust is often a factor when it comes to silo breaking. What can be done to increase the trust levels within an organization?
That is a great question. So trust comes with, with influence, right? And the ability to be able to speak with somebody. I found that the best way to be able to have, more trust with individuals is to listen, right? Uh, there's that phrase that we have two ears and one mouth, kind of per se, the more we listen, and the more we humanize our experiences when we walk through this world, it's going to give us an opportunity, right? Everybody has problems. Some of those problems people wear on their sleeves. Some of them are hidden deep inside themselves, and you don't know about them and stuff like that because they're personal, and as well as should be, right? Protected and do that. But being able to listen, being able to partake, to take, to break bread, I'm amazed at how many times, just by going up to somebody and saying, you know what, thank you for being here today. Just something so small, as far as I go, or just to be able to say, hey, what's on your plate today? And just being able to listen and see and allow people to be able to be transparent with you helps out, and consistency. So you may be where the point where somebody is kind of a little bit more reserved, right? We have those words, extrovert and introvert, kind of per se. But even at that, the beauty of those individuals is the fact that they can work together. There is a capability for them to be working together. You just have to be able to understand specifically, where they're coming from and what the time is. You definitely don't want to talk to somebody when they're under stress, under a timeline or everything like that. Knowing your audience, we talked about that. It's a key. So just being able to break bread with individuals, that's what I would consider one of the best options to be able to do. That's a great question, by the way.
All right. Do you see customers using your platform to integrate processes in areas from within an organization versus with outside applications?
We've seen both of them. We've had experiences where, we have, company A and company B, both using the same type of model, but we'll find out that, company A uses everything outside the box, right? And they use it as ordered, while company B might have some specific customizations that's done internally in order for them to be successful or set themselves apart in their business model. And that's fine. Both of the systems work. We try to take different dialogues with either or, because we want to be able to make sure that we observe everything that goes along as far as the logic. When the digital architect is outlined and it shows us specifically what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that, when it's our responsibility to be able to add that value, we want to be able to add that value as much as we can. And we only can do that in the measure that we know specifically what's going on and stuff. So again, transparency comes into play. So knowing that helps us out. We have had instances where people inside their own business have created their own, type of services and technology. And we work with them. We work with them because they have in-house developers, or they have in-house documentation. We have other individuals that have outsourced that information, and we come into that third party information as it comes to what they've experienced, and we work alongside them. So we've experienced both, and we're open to that.
All right, another question. Can creating efficiencies in one department create new silos because it's now outpacing the other departments? If so, what's the best way to rectify the situation?
Most definitely. So, with every growth comes new opportunities to be able to do new things, right? If I'll talk about it from a financial perspective. If I gave you, $10,000 additional in your payroll to be able to do something specifically, I'm pretty sure people will find out the opportunities to be able to grow and advance their technology or their business practices, and it does. It creates it creates problems, but it creates good problems. Since I spent majority of the time in the IT and the development world as a web application analyst prior to coming into DCKAP, and even now, I look at things at more from a perspective of how do we solve these problems? How do we become good problem solvers and begin to find the rhythm that's going to be able to be balanced within the organization, right? The moment that, and I've seen it specifically when COVID hit, while some businesses never saw the day of light again, other businesses flourished. I remember specifically one company that flourished. I mean, couldn't get our fast enough, the things that we needed, that people wanted, it just continued to just grow and grow and grow. So as a result, that created a problem. It was a good problem because we were blowing our sales plan out of the water, but nevertheless, it created new problems. So at that point, adaptability and the consistency and being able to do and face these pain points head on are things of leaders. And what I'm encouraged is that we have 28 leaders here today, on top of the presenters that we're doing, 28 leaders that are on the forefront of their businesses, heading up these businesses and doing amazing stuff. Again, it's a plethora of information. So in that point, not only can I answer this question, but it's also individuals here that can share experiences and say, yeah, when we decided to do something and it triggered a growth in my business, then, we had to, shift and change and everything like that. There's nothing better than to have a problem and working as a team to be able to grow, and you find a solution and then it creates positive problems, what I would consider positive problems, right? And then at that point, we can see the fruits of our labor and then be able to say, wow. And then, advancements begin to happen as far as career-wise, where an individual started off as one point, but now has grown into another point, and it continues. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to continually be able to see. I don't think there's anybody here that'll be able to say, you know what, I'm fine. We're doing, the same thing for over and over and over for the rest of my life and stuff like that. I think that even an individual like that would still want to be challenged to a certain degree, and those challenges can come at very different type of stages in their lives, but also in their in the systems that they work in. So, yeah.
All right. Is it possible for there to be too much silo breaking where it begins to become distracting, too much togetherness or too much information?
Yes, you get to a point where you're like, we're having another meeting just to have another meeting, right? We're going to be discussing about meetings for tomorrow's meetings and stuff like that. So, but, looking back in those times, I wouldn't trade those for the opposite, where we don't like to get together and everything like that. What ended up happening, to be honest with you, is that we really liked our camaraderie. We liked the camaraderie that was created. We didn't mind enjoying the company of one another. Who doesn't want to be in a company that enjoys the company of their colleagues and be able to do that, to be able to go back and forth and have the bantering, the challenging, the fun stuff and stuff like that. If you enjoy coming to the place that you work, it's an awesome environment, right? It creates new momentum. It creates an environment of inspiration, of wanting to be able to challenge one another, kind of deal. So I've experienced that where, yeah, you get to the point where it's like, okay, we didn't need to have this meeting, we need to cancel it and stuff like that. And it ends up happening where we end up staying out of the way because we end up talking. So there is one point in all the processes that I was able to experience, and I encourage everybody to experience, is that where you get to the point where you've done the work, and if you're starting to hear less and less problems coming about, not because they're these departments are tired of saying the same thing and not getting results, no, but because you're actually servicing those departments and coming to a point where you say, you know what, I have done the due diligence to be able to help them out, because I always treated my clients, not necessarily the people that purchase, but also the people inside of the departments. Those are my clients. I was in a specific position where I was helping out the departments, right? I helped them out with their issues. So at one point or another, I had my hands in everybody's department per se in that aspect, the influence and stuff. And I'm very grateful for that. And there does come a point in time where you get to work and you're like, you don't hear the emails. You don't hear the phone calls. You get phone calls and you almost, call and say, hey, everything all right? Haven't heard anything. They're like, yeah, everything is good. And this is in the middle of a season, right? So this is not like, oh, we're on a low season, there's not many sales going on. No, we're basically running on all gears, where the business is running fast, fluid and stuff like that. The problems are minimal, and you sit there and you're like, wow, we've done it. It's like nothing else. I mean, you begin to say the fruits of your labor, you'd be able to say, wow. And then you have an environment that can't be made, it can't be created, and I know that again, there's 28 participants here, and I don't know specifically how many businesses they represent and stuff like that, but it is possible. It is possible. You can get to the point like that. I can lose weight. I just haven't, but I can lose weight. That is a possibility. So that's a great question, Cindy.
All right, I've got one last one for you.
Yeah.
How does DCKAP handle performance concerns with API integrations, especially in high transaction environments?
That's a great question. So, we've had one specific situation where a customer has over, 1 million products, and obviously, there's a lot of APIs that come along with, getting some processes as far as products and customer information going like that. 1 million products is, heck, $1 million is $1 million, right? Just like 1 million products is 1 million products. You're talking about SKUs, you're talking about inventory, you're talking about, price points. If the price point is different because of the customer or the customer, what I would consider the customer group, those that are with tax, those without tax, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of thought process that has to happen. The best way we come up with a solution to be able to do that is two-phased. One is to really understand the foundational logic of the business itself, of our clients. Where do you want to go? Okay, and then be able to phase it and make that into phases. The other two is the architect. Do you have the right services that you need to be able to accomplish it, right? If I want to go 1,000 miles per hour, but I'm using a bike, there's no way I can do that. I mean, unless I have something to thrust me that quick, that's not going to happen, right? And sometimes customers are bound by their budget, and I totally understand it. I totally get that. I was there in one position. But in other cases, just by switching something and having open dialogue to understand the digital architect within the services, it can do a tremendous things. Sometimes you have to get into conversations with developers, which are sometimes behind the scenes and with these services, and they kind of don't allow you to be able to have those conversations. We found that having good rapport and having an understanding of how these different mindsets work and logic can allow us to be able to have that key to be able to talk to them. Because then now we talk in their lingo, right? It's different mindset, right? Somebody who is in marketing is going to be looking at something new, a coder or developer, mindset is completely different, right? But the two can coexist. The two can get to a point where they can be able to have those conversations. And again, it goes back to breaking ground and stuff like that. So what we do is, again, we first have those conversations, specifically what was going to do and lay the foundation, because some of the things may not be able to be kicked off in the beginning, but it may come as we continue to build, right? And as we continue to do that momentum. And the next thing is just to say, hey, do you have the services adequate enough to be able to do that? And the manpower, right? Services come with manpower and stuff. And if you don't, then, we need to talk about that. It's amazing what we can do when we have a really candid conversation. Rings of Power versus House of Dragon.
It's a tough one. Might be the toughest one you get all day.
Well, since I'm at the end of my conversation and they can basically click it and delete my conversation, so I'm gonna say House of Dragons. I'm gonna say House of Dragons, stuff like that. So I get washed away when it comes down to that stuff, because it's just amazing and stuff like that. The things that they're doing from a CGI perspective and stuff like that. And the storyline is incredible and stuff like that. I sit there like a little kid with popcorn and just like, man, let's go, it's that kind of deal. So great question, Brad.
The really tricky questions are when people ask you Rings of Power or Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or, House of Dragons. I mean, that's could take up an entire webinar. So, but we'll circle back to that next time. Thank you so much, Aaron. That was awesome. You answered a lot of great questions. Wonderful. So I will let you guys take a quick break. I'll launch a poll, and then we'll be back here at the top of the hour for our next session. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.